The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsynder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, joined as always by Eric Knopsynder. And Eric, this is a huge week for us.
Yeah, we've been building for this, planning for this for months and months and months now, and it's finally here. The Surge on Sunday going to take place at Pitt-Johnstown and bring together some of the best wrestlers in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a long time coming for us. This is the first annual Surge tournament. We have been talking about putting on a tournament for quite some time in Pennsylvania, so it's finally coming to fruition for us. And I mean, it's been a long road, Eric. There's been a lot of ups and downs, and we haven't even got to the tournament yet. So I can't wait to see what's in store this weekend. You know, when we start Saturday, we'll start setting up Friday, and then Saturday with the media day, the weigh-ins. I'm really hoping that goes well, and then of course competition on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's been one of those things where we talked about it, and in like September, we're like, okay, we're still 2 months out, and then all of a sudden, it just seemed like it was upon us that we'd been planning for it and building for it for so long, and it seemed so far away for a long time, and then just all of a sudden, boom, it's here, and we've got all these last minute things to take care of. But yeah, it looks like we're hoping it's going to be just an excellent tournament and something that we can really build on in the future.
Right, and you said it, to build upon, right? I mean, this is a learning curve for us personally, and I think each year we're gonna get better and better. We don't plan on going anywhere, so be prepared to come to the Surge again in years to come. So, but looking at the field, we have a great field for a first year tournament. I'm really excited about some of the guys that are coming in to compete. And it should be a lot of fun. And I think it's going to be a little bit more fun than last weekend. Not saying anything bad about the Super 32, but just wasn't the best of weekends for me personally, and also for just Pennsylvania wrestling as a whole. I did tweet out that it was the first time in 16 years that Pennsylvania did not have a champion at the Super 32. And of course, I got bombarded with, well, the girls wrestling had champions, the youth wrestling had champions, and I mean, clearly I was referencing the high school boys programs, the high school boys class, but it was a rough go for the Pennsylvania wrestlers down in Greensboro.
It was, and we sort of knew going into it. We talked about it before that we don't have those really, really elite, number one ranked guy in the country guys so much this year in Pennsylvania. And we've been fortunate in the past few years to have a lot of those. So, I think it's sort of a natural order of things that you'll go through those cycles, and that you're not always going to have those guys. And the other thing is a couple of our top guys that you would have thought probably would have had a good shot at winning a title didn't end up competing in Carter Starocki and Ryan Crookham, who won a belt last year.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest reasons why I think we didn't have a champion was the lack of Carter there, and Ryan Crookham, who was a returning Super 32 champion who got banged up a few weeks earlier. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's somebody I saw someone comment and they said it's a preseason tournament chill, and it's like, yeah, it is, but this isn't just any preseason tournament. I mean, this is the Super 32. There's a reason why it's one of arguably the hardest tournaments in the nation to win, like Fargo and some of those tournaments. So, yeah, while it may be just a preseason tournament, look at the names that have competed in this tournament before. So, and quite frankly, Pennsylvania always fares pretty well down there. So, while it may not have been the best of showing for Pennsylvania wrestlers down in Greensboro, I think we're going to see some top quality wrestling here at University of Pittsburgh-Johnstown on Sunday. And Eric, looking at some of the wrestlers we have, it's pretty amazing the amount of talent, especially in the lightweights, right? And we said this, we've joked about this It's tough to get the big boys out this early in the season. It seems like, between football and I get it. After you're done playing a football season, you're not going to say, hey, let's just jump right into it and start wrestling. I get it. You need a little bit of a break. So we seem to not have any problems getting lightweights, but the upper weights, we're a little bit lacking.
Well, and that's one of the great things about wrestling is there are, they use the slogan all the time that any body can wrestle. And that's what's great about all these lightweights is, generally you don't have a whole lot of 106-pounders that are starting on the varsity football team. So, they don't necessarily have those ability to play high school football at that level. So they're kind of chomping at the bit and can't wait to get going for the high school wrestling season and see what they can do.
Yeah, you're right. And, we do have some very quality, some bigger guys that are very quality wrestlers. So, but Eric, I just want to go through and look at each weight and sort of preview each weight. Now, like the Super 32, there are going to be guys jumping in and possibly pulling out. We've had a lot of top quality guys pull out due to injuries, which is unfortunate, but it's inevitable that it's going to happen. So, we're gonna preview the wrestlers that we know that are still registered to compete this weekend, and let's start out at 106. And the first name that jumps off the page at me is Dylan Chappell from Seneca Valley, and the reason why is because we just saw him down in Greensboro take 7th at the Super 32, which is a huge accomplishment for a wrestler like Dylan Chappell, who last year as a freshman had some not issues, but he was in a roster battle. I mean, when you're behind a Pennsylvania state champion, what are you going to do? You go up in weight. He wrestled 113 when he was really a 106-pounder and still made the regional tournament. But then he comes back down to 106. He goes down to Super 32 and just really, really impressed, I think, both of us. He won, I think, 7 straight. He beat a ton of quality guys in the process. I was really impressed with the way he wrestled, and I think he's really poised to have a great season.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's one that, a week or two ago we would have looked at this, and when he said, yeah, he's a nice, solid wrestler, good addition. But now that kind of changes your outlook on him when you see what he went down there and did in Greensboro, that to place at the Super 32, I think that really does kind of bump him up a couple notches in our esteem and many others. So it'll be interesting to see, how he can do with presumably a full year at 106 this time. Yeah.
Again, just the intensity of him wrestling down at the Super 32, finishing ahead of some pretty quality guys from Pennsylvania for a guy who didn't make it to the state tournament. But again, remember, he was behind a state champion. He was behind Alejandro Herrera. So, of course, he's going to be in there, battling every day. So he's battle tested in a sense. So looking at the rest of the field here, another Southwest Regional guy, Carter Dybert from Franklin Regional. We saw him down at the Super 32. He rattled off a few wins. He was a state qualifier last year for the Panthers, and I thought he was a guy who really impressed me throughout the year. He actually had a few wins over Alejandro Herrera. So he's quality. He's tough. And I'm excited to see how he competes against some of these other guys here at 106 pounds. Most presumably is Brennan McBride from Coatesville, who as a junior at 106 comes in as a state qualifier last year. He's 56-20 in his career. I'm excited to see how he competes against guys like Carter and Dylan Chappell. But also the kind of unknown here, for me at least, is Michael Dolan from Spring Mills, West Virginia. This guy's a sophomore. Last year as a freshman, he went 52-3 and finished 3rd in the state in West Virginia. And it's like, I had to do a lot of research on him because it's not. I don't watch Spring Mills, West Virginia, weekly.
Well, and that's one. Like, I know some West Virginia schools that are just over the border. Some of those that aren't too far away. I don't recognize that name, so he might be one. Probably didn't really see too much PA competition that you can kind of judge how he stacks up with some of our guys.
Yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, there's not a lot of head-to-head matchups with Pennsylvania wrestlers, so it's tough to sort of gauge and seed that. But obviously, if he's 3rd in the state in West Virginia, he's probably pretty good at wrestling. So I'm presumably, he's going to do well here. A lot of regional qualifiers here. Mason Prinky from Connellsville, Bryce Beatty from Mount Union area. He was solid throughout last year. But then the biggest thing is look at all the freshmen we have coming in here. This is really what we marketed the surge to be is for freshmen to come in and sort of prove their worth and see, where they stack up against some guys that have already been there for a year or a couple years. One is Jackson Arrington from Forest Hills, who we saw also at the Super 32 and Fargo. He did really well in both those tournaments, and he comes in as a PJW state champion last year. Can Jackson Arrington hang with sort of the big boys?
Yeah, this is going to be one of those things, I've been talking for a couple years about Forest Hills and the talent that is coming up through there. And this is one of those guys, as you said, PJW state champ, has been to the big tournaments at Fargo and Super 32 and won matches at each of those. Wasn't able to place, but still showing that he can get in there and mix it up with the big guys. So, yeah, this will be kind of his chance right in his own backyard here in Johnstown to kind of come out and show what he can do at this stage of his career as a freshman.
Looking at another Collinsville wrestler here at 106 pounds. So we're going to have two pretty quality Collinsville guys here, and this is freshman Chad Ozias. He's a PJW state finalist. He was a runner-up last year. I'm pretty sure, Collinsville is going to have a good problem in that sense, like Seneca Valley did last year with two quality 106-pounders this year. Costa Moore from Candy McMillan, he was a PJW state fifth-place finisher. Drake Burford from Highlands, who I've seen multiple times competing. I feel like he's been around for a while. I mean,
he's only a freshman?
Yeah, I mean that's what he's listed as.
It seems like he's been around for a while.
I could have sworn he was in high school already, but apparently not. So he's a guy who, I mean, Highlands. Man, I can't remember last time Highlands. I mean, obviously there was Bill Spencer. I remember him from Highlands. He won a state title several years back, but. Yeah, I'm looking forward to him competing. Dylan Coy from North Allegheny, who is a PJW state seventh medalist. He's also here. And there's another guy who's an eighth grader from my neck of the woods, from Central Dauphin, Jake Gafoyle. He's only in eighth grade. He was a PJW state medalist last year, finishing eighth in the state. So really, again, there's a lot of unknowns here. I mean, how are those more senior guys going to compete against some of these freshmen that are hungry and ready to go? I love this. I love seeing 106 pounds and seeing all the young talent there, and really, I mean, we're going to look back from 4 years from now and say, man, look how stacked 106 was in the surge.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about 106 is you get these guys that are kind of moving up, and then different ones hit different growth spurts throughout their high school career. So these freshmen that are 106-pounders now might be 45-pounders by the time they're done. So they can kind of grow up through this. But as you said, yeah, that leads to a lot of stacked brackets when you look back a few years from now.
I'm sort of equally excited for 113 pounds because there's a lot of, again, it's a very top-heavy bracket with the amount of talent here. And it's led by AHR, Alejandro Herrera Rondon, who comes in as a state champion. Last year, he was 46-8 for Seneca Valley. Really came on strong in the postseason. I love the way Ali wrestles. He's so calm out there on the mat. He never seems to be kind of flustered or frustrated. He always just seems to be in control of his emotions and really the matches. So he kind of, I mean, he has a target on his back now that you have a state championship as a freshman. You have a target on your back. He'll have a target for the rest of his high school career. Other guys that are there, they're going to try to look to sort of take him down. Kyle Burkholder from Hempfield. He's a senior. He's 77-15. Last year, if you remember, he finished third in the state. He had a very, very good state tournament. And I think kind of maybe a little bit under the radar for Kyle. But he's long and lanky, so he's very dangerous. And I like those two Southwest Regional guys. And then we have a slew of other quality wrestlers. One that strikes me really quickly is Dayton Del Visco from Malvern Prep. This is a guy who was at Penncrest his freshman year of high school, and he went to the state tournament that year. Actually has some pretty substantial wins. He's got some wins. He actually beat Cole Wilson from Northeastern his freshman year at States. He moves over to Malvern Prep, and he finished third at the National Prep Tournament. So just right off the bat, 3 guys that are very quality wrestlers.
Yeah, that's pretty good. When you go state champ, state third, and national preps third, that's a pretty solid top 3 right there.
And then you throw in state qualifiers like Adam Jacob from East Pennsboro, who's a junior. Bailey Gimber, one half of the Gimber twins here from Hamburg. Chase McLaughlin from Jamestown area, also a state qualifier last year. You name it. I mean, 113's got it. They got young talent. They got old talent. I mean, it's quite daunting. If I'm a freshman coming in and wrestling 113 pounds in the surge, I'm a slightly a little nervous. And you throw in a guy like Rocco Welsh, probably the biggest, maybe exciting thing that I'm looking forward to at 113 pounds is seeing how Rocco Welsh as an 8th grader competes against some of these bigger names. He's an 8th grader, but he was a state champion last year at the PJW tournament. You got to see him out in Fargo, Eric. You gotta expect him to turn some heads here.
Yeah, he's going to be one to watch definitely here. And then it's interesting because, as you said, there are a handful of seniors in here, which surprises me a little bit at 113, for a preseason tournament to see 5-6 seniors in there. So, as talented as he is, how is he going to fare wrestling against some pretty solid guys that are much more mature in terms of, they've got 4 years on them, 5 years on them.
Looking at some of the other upperclassmen at 113 pounds, as you mentioned, Eric, Trent Vlauchek from Burrell, he's here as well. He was a state qualifier 2 years ago. Shane Reynolds from Springford, he was a regional 6 last year. There's a handful of upperclassmen. Jeffrey Russell from Shippensburg was regional 5th last year. Yeah, I'm excited to see how this young and new talent sort of mixes in together and see how they all compete.
Yeah, that definitely should be fun. And as you said, Rocco Welsh, probably the one guy to really keep an eye on there as an 8th grader.
Going up to 120 pounds, it doesn't get any easier. In fact, it actually may get a little bit harder. Looking at the entries that we have, one guy that sticks out to me is Cole Wilson from Northeastern, a guy who's 67-9. He was 4th in the state last year, had a tremendous state tournament last year after finishing as a regional runner-up. He was a state qualifier as a freshman, as I mentioned earlier. So, Cole Wilson is a guy who I think can really make some noise here at 120 pounds in a weight that is not so easy. I mean, you got Ian Oswalt from Burrell. He's a sophomore. He also finished 4th in the state last year in Double A, went 47-10. And those Burrell boys, I mean, my gosh, what tournament didn't they wrestle in last year? So really excited to see how Ian comes in and competes. Hopefully he did get a haircut. I mean, his hair's always super long. So we'll see what he comes in with hair wise. Baylor Shunk.
That's a good question. We haven't talked about, are we going to make him wear the cap since these are kind of PIAA modified rules? Does he have to wear the cap?
I mean, I think he has to. I mean,
and does the cap stay on if we don't make him wear a headgear?
I think you got to put the cap on. I mean, he can't unless he has a man bun. But
I'm saying, does he? If he doesn't wear a headgear, which we're not requiring, is the cap just going to pop off all the time?
Well, I don't know. That sounds like a disqualification if it does.
You're asking me. I'm the bald guy. I have no idea. Works.
You'd have no idea how that works. We'll figure it out. But maybe we'll just hold him down and give him a haircut. We could do that too.
I don't think you could hold him down, Jeff.
Well,
I've heard about your top game.
My top game was really good. It was my bottom. I mean, I was terrible at bottom. Neutral and top, I was fine. I went to Central Dauphin. Okay, we know a little bit about doing stuff on top.
So you can tilt him.
I mean, I probably could, but I'm not gonna come out flat and say it. I could.
Well, we might have to have a challenge match.
I mean, who do you want me to go against? I mean, I'm just kidding. Don't put me on the spot. I don't want to embarrass myself or this company. Ian Oswalt, another guy who I like here, another state medalist who's going to be at 120 is Baylor Shunk from Penns Valley. Sort of a journeyman for me, 96-30 in this career. He was a state qualifier last year. He's a guy who's going to Penn State. He's going to walk on to Penn State and compete there. I think he's that Penns Valley program always turns out some top quality guys. Another one, Jacob Blair from Muncie. If you remember, Eric, Jacob Blair last year was ranked as high as number 1 in the state at 106 pounds. He missed weights in the postseason, so he failed to make weight, and essentially, cut his season short for him. He was an 8th place finisher in the state tournament as a freshman. Now he comes in as a junior. And I was just reading the Pennsylvania Wrestling Roundup, and the front article was about Jacob Blair and how he wants to be a state champion this year after sort of losing a chance at the postseason last year. So right off the bat, again, we have 4 state medalists that are going to come in and try to compete.
Yeah, that's a pretty good top 4 whenever you're looking at. And the thing you have to remember about this is, whenever you've just gotten rid of all those seniors from last year, you're kind of looking at this and you're saying, well, 4. But, I mean, there are a lot of guys here that are going to be state medalists this year. So even though there are 4 in this weight class, you could very easily see 6 or 7 of these guys end up on the podium in Hershey this year because those seniors from last year are gone.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely fully expect a lot of these wrestlers competing to be on the medal stand because, as you said, yes, a lot of those seniors are going, and now they are kind of the top dogs like Baylor Shunk and Jacob Blair. I look at 120 pounds, another couple guys that I really like are Rafael Portilla from Carlisle. This guy is a 2-time state qualifier. He's always impressed me, the way he wrestles and just kind of grinds out matches. He's very he's in your face, and he's not going to back down. You're going to have to go 6 minutes with him. Tyler Zimmerman from Derry area, state qualifier last year, went 42-6. A guy that's just really fundamentally sound. I love the way he wrestles. He's again a guy who's slick, very good on his feet. So looking forward to seeing how Ty wrestles. Tim Euler from New Oxford. He was a state qualifier last year. Went 66-18 in his career. Matt Inman from Anvil Cleona, so 2 District 3 guys coming at you at 120 pounds. He was a state qualifier last year. Again, just a ton of talent here. You even look down the list at some of the other guys, like Derek Burke from Mifflin County, state qualifier last year. Jimmy Baxter from Cannon Mac. Garrett Thompson from Franklin Regional, 17-7 last year, kind of banged up a little bit. And then you throw in some of the new guys that you see. Colton Stone King from Waynesburg Central, just another Waynesburg Central guy that's going to be one of the top freshmen in the state. He was 3rd at the junior high PJW state tournament. So, again, the amount of talent throughout, it's mixed in between freshmen, sophomores, seniors, and juniors. I mean, it's just great. So I can't wait to see how it all plans out and plays out on Sunday.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the more fun weight classes to watch. As you said, just start off with those top 4, and then you sprinkle in some of those other guys that maybe have made a jump from last year, and then, as you said, another freshman there that could really open some eyes in Stone King.
I mean, 120 is deep. 120 is deep. They have 4 guys that were state medalists. You have a handful, like 10 people that are at least state qualifiers. A bunch of regional qualifiers, so 120 is deep. I mean, it's a very deep weight class, and 126 is equally as tough. You have another weight with 4 state medalists here, so 4 guys that have state medals to their name, led by Bronson Garber from Upper Dauphin, who recently committed to VMI. He's a 3-time state medalist. He was 5th, 4th, and 6th in his career. He's already 129-15, so can you only imagine what he's going to end his career like at Upper Dauphin? And Bronson is a very quality wrestler. I really enjoy watching him compete. He's had some ups and downs. Last year at the District 3 tournament, took a few losses. Maybe he shouldn't have, but he seems to always compete well in Hershey. So he'll probably come and bring his A game on Sunday. Luke Lucerne from Council Rock North. He's only a junior, but he recently gave a verbal to Navy. He's 69-19 in his career. He was 6th in the state last year as a sophomore. He was a state qualifier as a freshman. Kind of, grew into this weight. He was a smaller wrestler and then kind of grew into this 120 range, and we're going to see him compete in 126 pounds. Patrick Edmondson from Southern Columbia. He's only a sophomore. Last year, I thought he had a fantastic year for the Southern Columbia program that really was stacked. If you look at that, and he definitely wasn't one of the bigger names on that team, with Jarrett Lane being there, Gage Garcia, but he finished sixth in the state last year as a freshman, 44-12, so over 50 matches for him, and he comes back in at 126 pounds. So it's again very, very deep weight class.
Yeah, this is 126 might be my favorite. Because, as you said, you got those top four, and then you drop down to or top three, and then you mentioned Anthony Glassell from Brockway, who was a state medalist last year. And then all the way down at number 5 is Z.J. Ward, who entering the season has 105 victories.
Yeah.
And you throw in Seth Hoops from Octorara, who also has more than 100 wins. So you've got a sixth seed who's entering his senior year with 101 wins.
Yeah, I mean, those again, that just shows you the depth of talent here at 126 pounds, and I think it's probably the toughest weight in my opinion. Just looking at the entries, I think 126 and 120 are definitely two of the tougher ones. Like you said, Z.J. Ward has 105 wins, and Seth Hoops has 101 wins, and they could be the 5th and 6th seeds. Chan Shearer from Seneca Valley. This is a guy who was a sophomore. Last year, he was at Kiski Prep. He was one of the top incoming freshmen last year on our report. He was a national prep qualifier, but now he's at Seneca Valley where he's surrounded by talent. I mean, that Seneca Valley lightweight grouping is just insane. I mean, they're very, very strong, and I think he could come in and really sort of make a name for himself, at least in the PIAA sense. Dalton Gimber, the second half of the Gimber twins, he's now at Hamburg. He's 39-10, was a state qualifier last year. Then Jason Baker from Dairy area. I mean, what a story Jason Baker is. I mean, I don't know if I would have thought that 4 years ago when we were talking about Jason Baker and him coming in as a freshman and his battle, with cancer, and now here he is. He's 64-23. As a senior, and he's a 2-time regional qualifier. I'm so stoked about Jason Baker and his story.
Yeah, and he continues to impress. I mean, just to miss a year, no matter what the injury or the circumstances, can be really difficult for a wrestler, to keep progressing. But to overcome what he's had to overcome in his career and his life is amazing, and he just keeps getting better, and always good to root for a kid like that, and love to see what Jason can do here, and how he can make that next step up in his senior season. I mean,
talk about the mental strength and fortitude you have. I mean, you go through radiation, you go through chemo, you go through all those things, and how do you bounce back from that? I mean, it just amazes me that someone of that age can come back so much stronger, and I'm just very impressed with Jason Baker. Just the way he's come back even harder and stronger, it seems. So I'm excited to see how he does here at the Surge. Fred Junko from North Allegheny, another journeyman. He's 58-29, qualified for regionals twice. And he's gotten bigger. He was a little bit smaller coming into high school, and now he's grown into 126 pounds. Ethan Kaufman, now of Mifflin County. If you remember him, Eric, he was at St. Joe's Catholic, where he was a state qualifier, and now he's at Mifflin County because presumably, I mean, St. Joe's, there's a logjam of talent there in the lightweights.
Yeah, we saw that last year. They didn't have much in the upper weights, but in the light weights, there were just so many guys in there, so much quality there that you knew that was probably going to shake out a little bit, and some guys might end up at some different places. So Ethan is definitely a guy that I think could make an impact there with Mifflin County.
Junior Dylan Ramsey from Shippensburg, he's a regional qualifier. And then you look at some of the fresh faces. Jared Kessler from Connellsville, he was a PJW state champion last year. So, how's he going to do against some of these older competition? Jeremiah Smith from Central York, same thing. Guy coming all the way from California, Jacob Valley from Poway, California. He is has some ties to Pennsylvania. He wrestled for Lower Dauphin his freshman year, where he was a regional qualifier. Last year, he had to move out to California, and he's coming back to wrestle in the Surge. And man, talk about a trip. That's a great thing to see a guy come from California to compete in the Surge.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. I mean, we've got a few out-of-state guys. I mean, we pretty much set it up to be, a Pennsylvania tournament where we said we'll welcome people from other states as well. And, at that point, I never really envisioned in our first year we'd have somebody coming from California to participate in it. But that's fantastic.
So 126, probably one of the toughest weights of the tournament. 132, again, it doesn't get much easier. And this one is kind of an interesting weight for me because it's very senior heavy. It's senior and sophomore heavy, actually, if you look at it. There's a lot of seniors and a lot of sophomores. So, you have people in two different parts of the career. You have the seniors coming in who some of them may already be committed to college. Some of them may be, really starting to take a look closer at colleges. And then you have sophomores who, I had a good freshman year and now here I am, coming back and hopefully not having a sophomore slump. But I'm one of the guys who I'm very looking forward to seeing is Nathan Higley from Sutherland County, 36-8 last year, and he was a state medalist. He was finished 6th in the state last year as a freshman in a very tough weight class. Nathan Higley is a guy who I think a little bit maybe under the radar, just in the sense that he's from District 4 and from Sullivan County, but he had some very quality wins last year as a freshman and competing in District 4, especially a lot of the talent there. He had Joe Clock, who was a state champion there, but he had some pretty good wins. He beat Bodie Tolbert from Bishop McDevitt last year, and he beat Donovan Chambers from Elwood City. So he's a talented wrestler, and he coming back as a sophomore. How is he going to fare against some of these seniors? Seniors like Colin Leonard from Northern Lebanon, who he's a state medalist last year. He finished 8th in the state. He's a 3-time. He's been to the state tournament 3 times now. Look at this record, Eric: 124-48 coming into his senior year.
That's a lot of matches. I
mean, you've got to be wrestling. My gosh, how many matches a year are they wrestling? If he's coming in with over 124, 124 wins.
He's got 170 matches.
I mean, my gosh, Northern Lebanon is. I mean, they do wrestle a lot. I mean, okay, so he was
and obviously the farther you go in the state duels makes a difference.
And they have for the past couple of years. He had 39 wins his freshman year, 37 his sophomore, and 48 his junior year. Last year when he finished 8th at 126 pounds, Colin Leonard. So he's a guy I'm looking forward to seeing. I could love to see him and Nathan Higley go at it. But, only time will tell if those two meet up. Some other guys in this weight class: Tyler Dilley from St. Mary's, regional 4th and then state qualifier last year. He's a guy who's sort of he's always been in the mix for the St. Mary's program.
You got another 100-match winner in David Kurkowski from Wyoming Valley West. Senior comes in with 103 wins going into his senior year. I mean, that's a really good guy that, could end up being somewhere in the neighborhood of a 4th seed in this weight class.
Yeah, I mean, he was a state qualifier last year. He got over the hump. As a freshman, he was 6th in the region, but he had a pretty tough draw at states. He had to wrestle Sammy Hilligus in the second round after beating Jack McGill, beat Tyler McKinney from Erie Prep, and then lost to Caleb Moore. So, he's a guy who I think is battle tested in that sense. He's had a lot of quality wins under his belt in his career. So it'll be interesting to see how he matches up with some of these other guys from all across the state.
Yeah, and then you go on, you've got another Burrell guy, which Brian Gall comes in, 93 wins. When you've got 93 wins at Burrell going into your senior year, you know that you're doing something right. Because as we said before, I mean, the schedule they wrestle, they're not afraid to go anywhere and take on anyone. So you're gonna get some losses, but to get 93 wins in that schedule is pretty impressive too.
I agree, and if you look, he has 49 losses, so he has close to 150 matches wrestled in his career in just 3 years. So that puts in perspective what his season output is like. Shane Strausser from Hamburg was also a state qualifier last year. He's a senior, 88-37. Kenny Heyman from Ken and Mac, he's a senior, 58-23. But he's a guy who, again, like Burrow, I mean, that Ken and Mac program. Think about the guys and the schedule he's wrestling. I mean, Ken and Mac guys, yeah, you may say, well, he's only 58-23 in his career. Yeah, but think about those 58 wins that he's getting. I like the way Kenny wrestles. He's sort of a scrappy, aggressive wrestler. He's not gonna give up easily, and he's gonna be in your face. He may give you a nice little push out of bounds if he has to. Bryce Volman from Muncie. He's a sophomore. Last year as a freshman, he was on that Muncie squad that we saw competing at a high level. He was regional 5th place finisher last year. Clayton Royer from Penns Valley, a junior, also a 2-time regional qualifier, 54 and 24 in his career. And then you have Kyle Vernon from Hamburg. And if you look at that Hamburg program, another really powerful District 3 team that's really putting some things together, having Bailey and Dalton Gimber coming in, transferring in, that obviously helps them. But Kyle Vernon is a sophomore. Last year he was 34 and 9, he finished as a regional qualifier. Didn't have the postseason I don't think he wanted, but now's a chance to sort of prove where you're at.
Yeah, and with this one, you get into 132, not quite as much depth here, a little smaller weight class. You don't have all the freshmen that we've seen in some of the lighter weight classes. Just one here in Cameron Snowberger from North Star. So not quite as deep, but still a lot of talent, especially at the top end of this weight class.
Moving up to 138 pounds, a weight that I'm very much looking forward to because of the depth here. And this has you can make an argument that 138 is either the second or third best weight class, maybe even the first, depending on how you look at it. Ty Varndell from Cambridge Springs, who recently committed to Edinburgh, is a senior. He's 108 and 19 in his career. Last year, he finished 4th in the state. He was a state qualifier his sophomore year. Jacob Ely from Hopewell, a senior that I've said this before, he's under the radar. He does not quite get the respect I think he deserves, partly in the fact that he's from Hopewell, but he's 95 and 19 in his career. He finished 5th in the state last year, had a great postseason. He's a 2-time regional qualifier, so he's a guy who's going to be looking to really come out and win this thing. I think he's really looking to win a hammer here. Ty Linsenbigler from Hempfield area, a guy I've been high on for a while since he was in the youth ranks. He comes in as a sophomore, 33 and 7 last year, was a state qualifier. You got to like the top talent here at 138 pounds.
Yeah, there's definitely some at the top there. There's top 3. I think you can match up with just about anybody. To have Varndell, Ely, and Linsenbigler, that's pretty talented. But then it keeps going. I mean, you go down and you've got Chase Proudfit from Penn Cambria, who's a guy that's been around, been a state qualifier, and a couple times I believe. You got Tristan Pugh from Berlin Brothers Valley, who was a state qualifier last year and has been coming on. Caden Mooney from Northwestern. So you've got quite a few, it looks like probably about 8 or 10 state qualifiers here, going all the way down with Tyler Martin from Bishop McDevitt, Eddie Hune from Carlinton, and Kenny Dushek from Freedom, who I believe was a WPIAL champ last year and, kind of came out of nowhere to kind of surprise some people with that, but really put together a strong postseason.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Freedom team, and Dushek is one of them, and Schulteis is the other. But you're right. There's 10 different state qualifiers here, and a ton of regional qualifiers. Tyler Martin from Bishop McDevitt, I think he's going to surprise a few people this year. I like the way he wrestles. He's very a solid wrestler. Eddie Hune, as you said, a junior last year. He's had a great career, 61 and 24 as a state qualifier. And Kenny Dushek, as you said, as a freshman, sort of came out and maybe surprised a few people with the way he wrestled. But then you throw in a guy like Anthony Steinmeier from Wilson, who in his career is 79 and 38, but's been at the regional tournament twice. Daniel Yesick from Ambridge, who I believe went 4-2 at the Super 32, had a pretty good showing there. He's a 2-time regional qualifier. So again, you look at 38, and there's a lot of depth. You have a few guys that I think could surprise some people. But again, who shows up? I mean, who shows up and who's going to bring it?
Yeah, and I just want to correct myself real quick here. Duszek was a Whippeal runner-up, not a champion. He lost to Simmerman there in the finals, but still a very good freshman year out of him. And then also you mentioned Yetzig. He's a guy that I think is really, Ambridge is one of those programs that you don't hear much about. They don't have a whole lot of guys that make a lot of noise in that program. But he's just one that seems like he's wrestling every weekend, doing everything he can to get better. And as you said, going down and going 4-2 at Super 32 really impressed me. So he's a guy that going into this might not be as big a name as some of these other guys, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him do really well here.
I agree. He wrestles everywhere. I mean, I feel like I see his name in almost every tournament there is. So you're right. He's really been competing a lot. Was impressed with the way he wrestled down to the Super 32. You even have a regional fifth place finisher here, Jared Baer from New Oxford, who is 52-22 in his career as a junior, finished fifth in the region last year. I mean, you look at the depth here, it's kind of an afterthought, and that's a regional fifth place finisher here. There's a ton of talent. A couple freshmen here that I'm interested in seeing. Justin Pierce from Elwood City, guy who's a freshman. I'm curious to see how he does. Aaron Sleeth from Hollidaysburg is also here. You got a couple Franklin Regional boys. Zach McCann from Franklin Regional, who's a two-time regional qualifier. Mason Spears from Franklin Regional, also a two-time regional qualifier. Another guy who I think flies under the radar is Jojo Moetti from Brashear, partly in the fact that he's in District 8 and goes to a city school, but he's 59-40. He's been to the Northwest Regional Tournament twice before, and from what he's told me, he's ready to come out and bring it. So, yeah, I mean, again, 138, is it the toughest weight? It has to be in the conversation of one of the top weights here at the Surge.
Yeah, it certainly looks like you could make that argument with just the depth there. You're going 12, 15 deep that are probably regional qualifiers.
So after 138 pounds, the field does thin out, but the talent is still there. And you look at 145, and that's no different. Looking at some of the names here, Trent Schulteis, who we just mentioned, Kenny Duszek. Trent Schulteis is a guy who last year, I mean, I completely omitted him from the top incoming freshman report. I remember Coach Jim Covert said to me, you forgot about him. He didn't have, he was a good youth wrestler, but he didn't have the credentials like some of the other guys on the list. And then he comes in and completely turns a lot of people, and says, where did he come from? He finishes.
Yeah, he's the one. I was actually confusing with Duszek. Schulteis is the one who went into the Whippeal tournament, was 29-13 going into the tournament, and ended up winning that 132-pound bracket, which included AJ Corrado and Alex Miskovich. So, a couple big-time wins there for him, and really kind of put his name on the map with that performance, and just continued to do it throughout the postseason. Ended up with eighth place in the state.
Right, and he didn't stop. I mean, he didn't just finish. He didn't just win the Whippeal and say, okay, well that was good for me. I think I'm done now. He continued to impress us, and I remember Greg Warnock and I were talking. When we did the Whippeal podcast, and we're like, yeah, that was a good performance, but when's this going to come to an end type thing, because it was almost like a Cinderella win. But he comes out and he does really well at the regional tournament. He beats Chase Proudfit, who you had mentioned earlier from Penn Camber. He beat him 9-2 at the regional tournament. Had some quality wins, as you said, from Alex Miskovich, Bodie Tolbert, and he comes out and he finishes 8th in the state. So again, Trent Schulteis, only as a sophomore, and he comes in here looking to win a hammer. Kenny Kaiser from Sagertown, a guy I've again been high on for a while, 73-17. Those Sagertown wrestlers, they're so stingy the way they wrestle. He's a two-time state qualifier, has yet to get on the podium, and I think that's something that sort of drives him is, he wants to be on that podium come Hershey. So Kenny Kaiser's another one I'm looking forward to seeing. Jackson Erb from the Chamonix, 101 career wins in his 3 years. 21 losses. He was a regional qualifier as a freshman, 6th in the region as a sophomore. Then last year he made it to the state tournament.
And then you've got Cole Meredith from O&J Roberts, a senior who didn't make it to states last year, but was a state qualifier the year before. He's a guy that's got 75 wins coming in. And, another really solid guy then, Brendan Stocku from Penncrest, comes in with 95 career wins, has yet to get to the state tournament. So you wonder, can he do that in this senior year, kind of start off with a bang here at the Surge and carry that momentum into his senior season?
Yeah, and two District 1 guys that I'm really excited to see because, as you said, Meredith is a guy who that O&J Roberts schedule, I mean, he's wrestling a ton of matches, 75 and 36 in his career. He's been to the state tournament. He's been to the state dual tournament. He's been around. So I think he's ready to compete. And then, as you said, Stucco, he's a guy from Penncrest who has 95 wins, but it hasn't made it to the state tournament. And he's been banged up a lot. I think his season's been cut short several times due to injuries. So, it's unfortunate for him. Colton Zimmerman from Trinity, out in District 3. Last year as a freshman, he was a state qualifier, went 34 and 11. Can he bounce back again this year and have get over that hump and get to the state medal stand? Antonio Emilio from Seneca Valley, also a sophomore. Last year, part of that Seneca Valley team that we saw do so well in the postseason as a team. He was 33 and 17 last year as a regional qualifier. So, again, maybe not the depth of talent here, but a lot of talent.
Yeah, as you said, the top end is pretty good. Some pretty good guys there, and then you look at the freshmen that are coming in. Another one of those Forest Hills guys that I've been hearing about and talking about for years. PJW state champ Eric Gibson. I think he's won a couple titles there, so he'll be one to watch. I know he got some national attention as one of the best incoming freshmen. Nationally is to one to kind of keep an eye on. So it'll be interesting to see how he does here. I think he was 2-2 at the Super 32 as a freshman, 145. Kind of a tough weight to break in at, but we'll see him. And then also Enzo Morlacchi of Kiski area is another freshman coming in at this weight class that we'll get to see how he does.
Yeah, I've heard only great things about Enzo and that Kiski area program. And sort of what he's capable of doing, especially at that weight, 145 pounds. But a guy like Eric Gibson, who is again, one of the top talents in the nation in his weight and his grade. So I think I got to see at least 2 of his 4 matches down at the Super 32, and there was one where, there was just small adjustments he needed to make, and he could have rattled off a few more wins. So I think it's a growing process for Gibson, and Forest Hills is, man, we talked about this before, but they're looking pretty strong at the youth talent, and it's only going to get better for a couple more years. But Eric Gibson, he's a guy who could come in here and beat a few seniors. I mean, would you agree with that, Eric? I think he could come in here and knock off some of these top top seniors.
Yeah, I would expect him to be competing for a spot on the podium. It's not going to be easy by any means, but I certainly think he's a guy that is in that, maybe even the top spot. I don't know. That's the fun thing about this is you get to see how these freshmen perform. If he runs into a Schulteis or even a Kaiser or an Herb, a senior, we'll see how he does there. But I think he's got the talent. It's just a matter of, at this point in his career, can he put it all together in that situation against a guy that's been through, 100 and 120 matches already.
Yeah, I mean, again, as a freshman, look at Schulteis. Look what he did last year as a freshman. And, he's a sophomore this year. And, you look at 45, he's kind of the top dog. He's the only state medalist there. So you got to go with him as sort of your top seed. Eric Gibson, I think he could be right there with him. And that's the thing that, I'm saying he's a freshman, so you think of him as being less experienced. He doesn't have those varsity matches, but let's not fool ourselves and act like this guy hasn't been on the mat a ton during his young career. Right.
I mean, he's been wrestling for years. He's been competing at a really high level in his age group for years. So to see him knock off a couple of seniors certainly wouldn't surprise me. Right.
I agree with you. He's already well established in his young early career without even having wrestled a high school match yet. So Moving up to 152 pounds, again, very top-heavy in the seniors and juniors. One guy that I really like here is DJ Erickson from Hanover area at 152 pounds. He's a senior, 83-32, has qualified for the state tournament the last 2 years. So this is a guy who's looking to get over that hump and get on the podium. He really made a huge jump from his freshman to sophomore year. I think he had close to a 500 record his freshman year, and then all of a sudden really turned it on. And excited to see how he competes.
Yeah, another senior here at 152 is Nick Montalbano from Seneca Valley, recently committed to American University, going down there with Teague Moore. 77-41 in his career, couple-time regional qualifier, and a guy that looks like he could be primed to kind of really build on what he's done in the first couple years and maybe make more of a name for himself as a senior.
Yeah, and I think as long as he's healthy, I think he's definitely going to be in the hunt for a state qualification this year. In his career, he's done very well for himself. Brendan Laird from Conneaut area, those Lairds, I mean, I feel like there was 20 Lairds up there in that area, like General McLean area, all those, there's just been so many of them. I can remember going back at least 5-6 years, all these Lairds, and apparently they haven't stopped. He's a senior coming in at 152 pounds, was a regional qualifier last year, 65-27 in his career, so definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Eli Brinsky from South Fayette, also a junior this year, 56-33, was a two-time regional qualifier. Colby Keene from Bradford, another District 9 guy here that I like, also a junior. Last year, 39-14, was a regional qualifier. So seniors, juniors, you get a little bit more of upperclassmen here.
Yeah, it's tougher to break in here. Almost all of these guys, as you said, are upperclassmen, and not quite the depth here. You do have one freshman here in the weight class in Seneca Valley, which seems like they've sent just about their whole team here. Love to see that. But Liam Volk-Close, I think is how you pronounce it. He's, as I said, a freshman. We'll get to see how he mixes in here with some of those upper class guys.
Yeah, and Liam was a guy who was a state medalist at the PJW junior high tournament last year. And another guy here at 152 pounds who's not a freshman, but he's a sophomore, but last year was a PJW sixth-place finisher, Ryan Weint from Forest Hills. He's going to be able to mix it up with some of these guys. Nathan Gabriel from Bedford, also a regional qualifier, and Logan Lisbon from North Star. Moving up to 160 pounds, another weight class where we have a lot of juniors and seniors, for obvious reasons. But Ethan Bainey from Southwestern, who's a junior, last year surprised a lot of people when he got on the podium at the state tournament, finished in 8th place from Southwestern. I think he's poised to sort of capitalize on that finish from last year and really solidify himself as one of the state's top wrestlers. One of my favorite wrestlers is Jack Bloomer from Kiski area, also at 160, and we saw him at the Super 32, wrestling very tough, had a pretty unfavorable draw for him, but he's 65-21 in his career. State qualifier last year. Last year he won the regions, but came in, and two people that he finished ahead finished on the state podium. Bloomer's a guy who I think is poised to have a great year this year. I think he's going to battle with the best of them. Yeah,
I agree. He's a guy that I think will probably have a pretty good shot of ending up on the podium this year. As you said, he definitely can mix it up with those guys that were there last year. Just kind of timing didn't work out for him there. But he's a solid one. And then you get Alec English of Kane area, a senior with 76-20 record. He was a state qualifier last year. Should be another pretty solid addition, along with Brandon Matthews of Peters Township, a senior with an 85-29 record. Hasn't gotten to the state tournament yet, but a 3-time regional qualifier and pretty solid overall guy.
Yeah, and Matthews recently committed to Seton Hill. Last week, actually, he committed to Seton Hill University. So excited for Brandon, and I think he's going to come out and battle hard here. He's another guy that just, it's so hard to get out of that Southwest region in AAA. It's if you're right there on the cusp of it, which I think some of these guys are, it's hard to break through. Dylan Keene from Bradford, another Keene. He's a 3-time regional qualifier, 73-18 in his career. So, again, can these seniors hold their own here, because there are some freshmen in here. There's Hunter Jackson from Red Lion area. There's a few sophomores as well. Tim Kelly Jr. from Northern York and Brant Mason from Hamburg.
Yeah, and then you've got a guy like Alex Apanik from North Star, who a very athletic kid. He does a lot of stuff. Comes in with a 54-19 record as a junior. He's a pretty solid guy that I think could be poised to take a step up. And then also one of our out-of-state guys is Hunter Wilhelm from Northern Garrett, a junior. He's got a 52-27 record down there at Northern. And Northern's an interesting one because they always come up to the Thomas tournament in Bedford, and you get to see a little bit of them. I'm guessing he's probably a younger brother of Devin Wilhelm, who was a pretty solid wrestler for Northern Garrett. So he had some depth there, along with Stephen Roeder of Bloomsburg, who was 21-8 last year as a sophomore.
Yeah, I looked up some of those Northern Garrett guys, and you're right. Them wrestling in the Thomas tournament really helps in terms of seeding, because you're looking at some of the common opponents that they had. So it always helps that you have a team right across the border that comes into Pennsylvania to compete.
Yeah, and then one that I'm interested in seeing how he does is Campbell Walls from Hollidaysburg area. He's a sophomore, but a PJW runner-up. So he could be an interesting one to see how he fares. I mean, breaking in at 160, getting into these middle and upper weights is kind of a tough thing to do as a young guy, but he's definitely, looks like he has the chops to hang with some of these guys.
You move up to 170 pounds, and yes, it does thin out in terms of number of entries, but I don't think it really takes too much of a dive in talent. You got a guy like Nick Delp from Kisk area, 69-22 in his career. He was a state qualifier last year for that, perennial power, the Kisk area Cavaliers. I think he's another one like Bloomer that is going to get over that hump this year and get onto the state podium. Another upperclassman here at 170 pounds is Jeff Markert from Peters Township, who's 61-23 in his career. He was a two-time regional qualifier. He's a guy who I think is much like his teammate Brandon Matthews. He's right there with the. He's a guy who wrestles in everything too. Between Matthews and Markert, they wrestle in almost every tournament I've seen recently. So that pans out. That plays dividends come the postseason.
Yeah, it definitely does. And another thing, and we've talked about it a couple times already with Burrell guys, but Austin Mealy here at 170 is a guy that you look at it and you say, career record 57-51, not that impressive, but he's a state qualifier. And every year it seems like Burrell has one of these guys that goes into the postseason with a losing record or a 500 record, and before you know it, they're in the state tournament and pushing for a medal in the state tournament. So these guys, as we've said a couple of times already, that Burrell schedule, they tend to take some losses, but they're usually ready for the postseason whenever they get there. And in this case, I think they'll be ready for the preseason as well.
Yeah, I've coined that the Burrell factor. And that is subject to copyright. But the Burrell factor is real. And you look at him, like you said, the career record may not be, astonishing, but regional qualifier and a state qualifier to his name. So clearly he's a guy who knows how to get his hand raised. Jesse York from Cranberry, also a senior, 52-37. His career was a 3-time district qualifier. Marshall Van Tassel from Union City, a junior, 27-15, was a district qualifier. So it does thin out a little bit at 170 pounds, but those top couple guys there, they're pretty solid.
Yeah, it does, and we knew going into this that having a preseason tournament, it gets harder to get the bigger guys, because once you get to this is where you have a lot of people that are playing football. When you get to 160, 170, 182 pounds and heavier, those guys are most likely have been on the football team, and we're into the first round of playoffs for a lot of teams. So there's some that are still playing. Other guys we know that have been banged up all football season are like, hey, I need a week or two off before I really hit the mat. So some of these are, as you said, not quite as big as the weight class is lower, but still definitely some top-end talent here.
And surprisingly, you go up to 182 pounds, and I was surprised at the number of entries we got here, considering, like you said, the whole football thing. But Mason McCready from Hollidaysburg is kind of the the leader here. He was a state medalist last year. He finished 8th in the state. Year prior to that, he was the regional 4th place finisher, 71-37 in his career, and he's going to Bucknell. So another guy that's already committed to college is coming in and wrestling in a preseason tournament. But he's going to have his hands full with some other guys. Gavin Henry from Union City, also a senior, 85-32 in his career. Those two, I think, are sort of leading the pack here at 182 pounds.
They are, but not too far behind there is Naim Flukas from Hershey, who was a state qualifier as well. He comes in with a 70-33 record, so it's certainly not going to be a cakewalk to the finals for either of these guys, probably, because then you got Jake Lucas of Cumberland Valley, who's a possible, around that 4 seed, something like that, maybe at this point. And he comes in with a 29-8 record as a freshman last year. So he's a sophomore now. Definitely looks like he could make some noise. Anytime I see a big guy that did pretty well early in his career like that, you just see that upward trajectory where it's going to get better and better as they're wrestling guys more their age.
Yeah, and Lucas didn't have the postseason that he wanted to, and he was a guy that was pretty high on throughout his freshman year, and he battled Flukas a couple times there. So Jake is a guy who, as you said, as a sophomore at a bigger weight, I think he's poised to have a good year this year and sort of erase that bad postseason that he had last year. I wouldn't sleep on Keegan McCord either from Anaheim Central, formerly of Donegal, but he's 68-37, a 2-time regional qualifier. Another guy who wrestles in a ton of tournaments. I swear, like last year, every single preseason tournament, round robin, takedown tournament, it didn't matter. He was in it. So he's a guy who I think is going to have a good year as a senior. Austin Wally from Elwood City, a junior. He's 58-19. I was regional qualifier last year. Luke Montgomery from Bethel Park, also a junior. Not the best record, 38-26, but again, Bethel Park, he's wrestling at King of Mountain. He's wrestling the Powerade. He's a 2-time regional qualifier.
Yeah, there are a lot of regional qualifiers in here. Alex Faust from Northern Bedford, another one that's been to the regional tournament a couple times. Pretty solid guy. So it definitely there is some depth here. There aren't a ton of guys here, but everybody is pretty solid. I don't think there are too many easy wins out there at 182.
And 195, again, yeah, it's thin. It's very thin, but the talent is there. They're pretty talented wrestlers here. Bryson Miller from Freedom, senior last year, really I thought had one of the better postseasons of those Freedom guys. And you look at Schulteis and Dushek and all those guys. Bryson Miller really impressed me, 92-28 in his career, finished 6th in the state last year, has been to the regional tournament twice before that. So Bryson Miller, you got to like his chances of doing well here.
Yeah, he does, but, again, there are only a handful of guys here, not even that, with 3 guys at this point, but all 3 of them are really intriguing to me. We're going to go, unless we get a couple late entries here, probably going to go a round robin here. So we're going to get to see Bryson Miller also go up against Colin Fagley from a Hanoi area, a senior with 99 career wins, 99-24 coming in, 2-time state qualifier. So really a quality guy there. And then you throw in a PJW qualifier in Nico Martini from Trinity. He's only a sophomore. He didn't wrestle varsity last year, but he's going to get thrown into the fire here and see how he can do against some of these top guys in the state.
Right, yeah. Welcome to varsity wrestling. You get Bryson Miller and Colin Fagley, as your first tournament. Both guys with close to 100 wins in their career. So, yeah, Bryson Miller and Colin Fagley, I'm looking forward to. Both double-A guys, so this has indications for, rankings in the state and things down the road here for these two. You go up to so 220, another weight where the numbers aren't quite there, but the quality is. And I'll start by looking at Nathan Simmers from Altoona, who last year was a state qualifier. He's a senior, 76-32 in his career. A guy who I like, and I know people up in Altoona are excited about. Nathan up at 220 pounds, and can he get over that hump this year and get on the state podium?
Yeah, I like Nate Simmers. I think this is going to be a year where he does some really nice things there for Altoona, and I think this is a good start for him. Get in here, get a couple matches in, and pursue that hammer. Not a given by any means for him. He's got Tony Ellis in his weight from Methacton, a senior who is 66-32 in his career in a state qualifier. So some definite should be a good match if we end up seeing that one. There's also Dustin Swanson from Garden Spot, a sophomore who is 27-13 last year as a freshman. And again, I keep coming back to this. Anytime you can post 27 wins as a freshman at that kind of a weight at 220. That's a pretty solid kid that looks like he's only going to get better as time goes on.
Yeah, I would assume Swanson, as a guy who as a freshman went 27-13, is someone who's going to continue to improve. And as you said, Tony Ellis from Methacton, you're not coming out from Methacton if you're not ready to win, right? And he was a state qualifier last year. Has been to the district tournament a few times, so he's a guy who I think is going to try to prove something come Sunday. And then you move up to heavyweight, and although there's only two, they are two guys that I'm looking forward to seeing. Jalen Stevens from Myersdale, a guy we've talked about for many years, or at least the last 2 years. We got to see him down at Super 32. Can he finally come onto his own and really make a name for himself, especially during the postseason?
Yeah, he was, and we've mentioned it before, he was injured, missed the postseason last year, so he went 19-3 as a freshman, was really a solid guy, and the first chance that we really got to hopefully see what he was made of and kind of see how he did and where he belonged in the rankings was at that Thomas tournament in Bedford, and that's when he got injured, didn't get to finish that out. So not quite sure how that season would have panned out, but looking forward to see him here. I know Greensboro didn't go quite the way he wanted it to, but I'm sure he's looking to get back on the mat and go here with Max McMurray of Trinity Camp Hill, who's our other registrant at this point. He's a senior, so he got a little more experience, regional qualifier, 33-30 in his career. But should be an interesting matchup, and probably going to make him go 2 out of 3 here just to get a little bit more mat time.
Yeah, I would definitely expect to do that. Definitely do best of 3 here. So that wraps it up for our preview of the Surge tournament, Eric. And like I said, it's hard to believe it's here. I mean, I can't believe that we're actually previewing the Surge tournament with all the painstaking details that we've gone over in the last 6 months. And yet we still have more to go, right? I mean, up until Sunday, we still have a ton to do, and I got to say I'm looking forward to it to be here and not having to worry about it anymore. I can say that.
Yeah, it's been a long process, mostly a fun process. Little bit of, a couple of times when we're like, oh man, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do about this? Definitely some interesting moments in running our first tournament, but so excited about it. I think it's a great field. We're actually pretty much at capacity, so we're really not looking to add too many more. We would like to get a couple more big guys. If anybody out there is listening, wants to show up at Pitt-Johnstown on Saturday and weigh in and get in on Sunday, we'd be glad to have some of those guys. But, I really do think it's a really strong field that you're going to see a ton of regional state qualifiers out of and a lot of state medalists as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Eric. And it hasn't discouraged us enough to not do it again. So we're looking forward to running this for years to come. So it should be a lot of fun. And Sunday and Saturday as well. Saturday, I think, is going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of college wrestling on. There's the Clarion Open. You got Ohio State at Navy. A lot of good college wrestling to watch to help prepare you for Sunday. And of course, Sunday wrestling starts at 9:00. So if you're in the area, you probably should stop over at UPJ and check out some of the good wrestling.
Yeah, a lot of guys that people in my area here in Johnstown don't get to see on a regular basis. There are a lot of local guys in it, but there are also guys coming from all over the state, every corner of the state. We've got, as we said, some Maryland guys in it, West Virginia, California. So definitely a chance to check out some talent that you might not see all the time in this area. A lot of AAA guys, which we don't get to see nearly as much of as we do the AA. So, yeah, I couldn't be more excited for it.
Well, Eric, this is it, man. Next time we'll be on the air, we'll be wrapping it. We'll be talking about the surge and how well it went, hopefully, right? And if not, hopefully both of us come out alive on this one too.
It's the preseason for us too, but we're going to do our best. We've been working hard, in shape, if you will, for the tournament in terms of planning anyway.
Right.
I'm not going to say that I'm in shape for the wrestling part.
So you're saying you want to go 2-2-2 with me? Is that what?
No, God, unless you're taking 2 seconds.
Well, apparently my top game's not where it needs to be, Eric. So I don't know. You get on top of me, I may not be getting up. So.
Well, I think I can still ride legs on you, so I'll be all right there for a little while.
Well, Jeff Swigert really was, every time before we wrestled Cumberland Valley, we would drill for a week for an hour straight. Stopping legs, defending against legs, and then if they're getting in, how to get them off. And I swear I still ended up in legs, and I would get yelled at profusely. But so I don't want to give away too many of my weaknesses, Eric, but it should be a lot of fun. Again, we're really looking forward to it. For all of you guys that are going to be coming out to compete in it, we thank you. We look forward to having you there. If there's anything we can do to make it better, let us know. And then really after this, we're starting preseason rankings. We're coming out with our top incoming freshman report, and it's really just getting started for us. So there is no real break for us.
No, and that's kind of the thing that we haven't thought about yet, is that all our energy's been put into the surge here, and then as soon as it's over, it's going to be like, okay, season's here. We've got preseason stuff to do. We got to get the rankings put together. Got to get the top incoming freshman report out to everyone, which I know everybody looks forward to that, and all the work you put into that. So yeah, we're really gonna kind of hit the ground running here with the surge, and then be right into it before you know it.
And again, you can follow along all the action from the surge. You can follow us on Twitter at PA Power Wrestle. Keep updated. You can look at the entire list of entries for the surge. If you go to PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs, you'll find all the information on the surge. You should probably follow us on Facebook and give us a friend request, or give us a thumbs up at least. That would be pretty cool. We're on Spotify, so if you want to listen to this on Spotify, you can do that as well. And Eric, looking forward to Sunday.
Yep, can't wait for it. I think a lot of people are going to love the hammers that we've gotten made, kind of handmade trophies for the winners. Going to be really cool.
Those are very unique, custom-made hammers, and they are. Listen, we actually traveled down to Greensboro with one in the car, and I could have used that to bludgeon you many, many times, because that thing is.
Thankfully, I was driving, so it wouldn't have been a smart call on your part.
Those things are really massive, so we may want to put a warning label on them, like may cause death. So hopefully the winners are responsible with them. So again, Eric, can't wait for Sunday. And until next time, wrestling fans, keep it powerful.